Hey, today is Tuesday, April the 21st. It is great to see you once again. It is a rainy day out here in West Virginia, but today is the day that the Lord has made, and so rejoice and be glad in the day that God has given us. Today I want to talk to you about one of Jesus's great I am statements. 7 times in the Gospel of John, we have recordings where Jesus is asked, describe who you are. This amazing teacher that the people had been seeing, the miracles and the parables that he'd been teaching, the disciples wanted to know, who are you? You are unlike anything this world had ever seen. And 7 times, Jesus will respond with a different way to describe who he is. Every time, though, he begins with an I am statement. And he says things like, I am the resurrection and I am the life, or I am the light for the world, or I am the bread of life, or I am the good shepherd. 7 times Jesus will respond with I am statements, and it's no coincidence. When Jesus says I am, he's doing it for a very specific purpose. If you remember in the Old Testament, when Moses is facing the burning bush, and God is speaking to Moses through that burning bush, and God tells Moses, I'm going to send you into Egypt to free the people, to liberate the people. And Moses is afraid. He's afraid of going before Pharaoh, and Moses says to God, well, who should I tell them is sending me? God, what is your name? And God doesn't say, I'm Elohim, or I'm God, or I'm Yahweh, or anything like that. No, God says, tell them that I am has sent you. The great I am, the only thing in the universe that truly matters. And so when Jesus responds 7 times with these I am statements, he's making a point. He's telling the disciples, he's telling us that he is God. He is the Son of God. 7 times Jesus will say this. And the I am statements, I love them because they describe Jesus in many different ways, and they all have different meanings behind them. But I think there's one I am statement in particular that we in 2020 really misunderstand. And it is when Jesus says, I am the gate. And that is one of the I am statements that we don't focus on that much because I think we have lost in many ways the deeper meaning, the true message that Jesus is trying to tell us when he says that I am the gate. And so I want to read to you, before I try and explain Jesus' deeper meaning, I want to read to you those verses. And so they come from John 10, beginning in verse 7. Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They come in and go out and find pasture. I am the gate. Now, I think we often picture, when Jesus says, I am the gate, we often picture of it in the way that we picture modern day gates. Something like this. You put these gates up, and this is on a trail that I like to walk on, and it's used to keep out cars, and it's used to keep out people on horses, and it's really just used to make sure that it's only people walking and people riding their bikes out here. But we often picture this nice sturdy gate that can swing open if we want it, but it's unguarded, it's unmanned. But when Jesus was alive, he's describing the gates that were around in his time. And more specifically, he's describing the gates that shepherds would use. Shepherds during Jesus' time would have to travel. Every single day they're moving their flocks around because the grass in shepherds' time were not luscious, and they were not these full pastures, the pastures that I grew up on. We take our cattle out there and they would be good for really the whole summer, hopefully. But the grassland in the Holy Lands that the shepherds would use, they were not very plentiful. And so the shepherds would have to move their flocks around every single day. And they would typically go out during the day, and their sheep would graze, and they would feed, and the shepherds would from time to time have to protect them, fight off predators, wolves and bears. But then at the end of the day, after a day of grazing, after the shepherd had kept his sheep safe, the shepherd would search and try to find the best enclosure to gather his sheep inside, and he would keep his sheep all together inside of whatever type of enclosure he was able to find. If he was able to find a cave, that was the best of all, but there's lots of cliffs and ledges, and the shepherd was very good and skillful at finding a place that he would bring his sheep inside of, and he would keep them there overnight so that they would not get out, and all of his herd would be in one place. But there was a problem. Somehow, some way, he had to make sure that those sheep stayed inside of that closure. And so the shepherd had to figure out a gate system. And more often than not, the gates, sometimes they would be, makeshift gates that he would find brushes or shrub or some other way to make some type of gate. But more often than not, that was not available. So what the shepherd would do, the shepherd would literally get down on the ground, lay his head down, and he would become the gate for the sheep. The shepherd, the person, not a physical barrier, but the shepherd himself became the gate to keep his sheep inside, to keep his sheep enclosed, and to make sure that shepherd would be a barrier, would be a guard, that any type of predator, be it a wolf or another human being, was not able to get the sheep. And so when Jesus tells us, I am the gate, it's more than just, us understanding Jesus as a physical barrier. Jesus is saying that it's me. I am the gate. And we know that Jesus means this. We know that Jesus' life goes all the way to the cross, that not only does he lay down on the ground and become a gate, but he lays down his life for you and for me. And so this great I am statement, when Jesus says, I am the gate, I think there is such a deeper and more powerful and more meaningful message that Jesus is trying to tell us, that you mean so much to the Lord, that you are so valuable to who Jesus is, that he is willing to lay down his life for you, that he's a guard, he's a barrier. He wants to keep you safe along with the rest of the flock, to keep all harm from coming your way. And so today, may you be reminded that you've got a gate in front of you, that it's the best gate you can possibly ever imagine, that it is Christ the Lord, that he wants to keep you safe, and he will keep you safe from the devil, from everything else that this world wants to pull you away from God. And so may you be blessed by the great I am, Jesus, who says, I am the gate.